All right, Jay Shetty, Danny and I are so excited to chat with you at Stagwell Sport Beach during the Cannes Lions Festival because you have been booked and busy out and about everywhere, so thank you for taking the time.
Oh, no, thank you so much. I feel like we should have recorded everything we've just spent talking about, so we've already had a great chat. Thank you so much for having me.
And we're touching in near the end of the festival, so it's all been a whirlwind. Do you have any highlights so far?
My favorite highlight was being on main stage on Tuesday. It was amazing to see how many people showed out. It was on the terrace. I thought it was going to be indoors, but we ended up being on the rooftop. I don't know how many people were there. It was amazing, and the energy was awesome, and it reminded me of like that Cannes feeling of all these creators, young marketers, independents, people who'd come in, and then afterwards I went into the audience and was just hanging out with everyone. It was so much fun. So that was a big highlight for me. And then I did a session with Adweek Vanguard, which is amazing, where they ask each of the top CMOs to bring a +1 who's an up-and-coming marketer. And so you're getting to see the next generation and the current, and that was a really special event too.
Yeah, and like you were saying, this is a place for creators, marketing, media, advertising execs, and you have sort of built this incredible career. I feel like On Purpose is definitely a big part of that. You're a creator yourself, obviously. How does it feel to know that people like want your opinion and your insight here at the festival?
It's really powerful and meaningful. I think it's amazing that, and I saw so many other creators, whether they've traveled here with TikTok or Amazon or giving their perspectives. I think it's amazing to be involving creators in the conversation. I think creators have such a deep understanding of their community, their audience, their people, and so being able to advise how to connect with them and how to talk to them effectively is, I feel creators are the best place to do that.
I love that. And what is, because you've been doing On Purpose for a minute now, and it's so successful and so amazing, and people just love to hear your point of view and how you help people open up. What has been the most rewarding part of that journey so far?
Wow, what a great question. It's been 5 years now.
Yeah.
And it feels like forever, and at the same time yesterday. I think the most rewarding thing has been the conversations before and after the interviews. So it's always like the meetings, like getting to meet some of your heroes and being completely blown away, getting to meet people that you didn't know so much about and they completely poured their heart out. I think we've been really fortunate to have some of the most vulnerable, deep, meaningful conversations with individuals, and so you get to see a side of them you've never seen before. And I think that's what's most rewarding, is being able to connect with people on a very, very human level and being able to see them without any mask, any hiding or any of that. So
Totally. I mean, you were mentioning that you were able to chat with some of your heroes on the podcast. Who was the guest you were most excited to chat with, or maybe even most starstruck by?
Oh, wow. So I think one of the guests I was probably most starstruck by, or actually, let's go with most excited first. One of the guests I was most excited to talk to was Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah.
I think he's just had such a phenomenal career, the amount of championships, the success, and I always think when you're driving that fast, like, you must have an amazing mind. Can you imagine, like, driving that fast with all these buttons too? Like, if anyone knows a bit about F1, it's like, it's a crazy, crazy journey. So that was awesome. One of the ones that was one of the most exciting that we had that had an amazing impact was with Kendall Jenner. Probably one of my favorite guests that we've had on. It was amazing because I don't think she'd done many podcasts before ours. And so when she opened up and was so kind and gracious with her time, and I even remember, like, before and after, it's like, she was just so sweet to the whole team and absolutely wonderful with them, and it all happened so organically. So that was a huge highlight as well.
And you were the perfect person for her to chat with.
Thank you.
You really created a great space for her to delve more into her issues with anxiety, which she has touched on the Kardashians. But I feel like we really learned so much more on your podcast.
Oh, thank you.
What was the takeaway for you from talking to her? Like,
I really loved how she took that trend that everyone was talking about on TikTok at the time, which was like putting a picture of your younger self by your, maybe it's your bathroom mirror or when you wake up in the morning, and remembering that when you're talking to the mirror, you're actually talking to her. And I just thought that was so powerful as an activity, and I think after that, so many people started doing it, and I love the fact that people are connecting with their younger selves, talking to their younger selves.
And opening up about things like anxiety and issues that kind of get swept under the rug a lot for people. Has that helped you deal with your own personal anxiety and everything like that? Like, have you been taking lessons that you're like, oh, wait, the mirror's on me now?
Oh, for sure. I think when I see people be that vulnerable, that open, and also sometimes get into something that you didn't even know you were anxious about, I think that's what I find most fascinating. Like, sometimes we're not even aware. We're just like, oh, I feel uncomfortable. I don't know what this is. And then a guest will say something, and I'll be like, that's exactly how I'm feeling. And I think that's what's been powerful for us. The podcast is really to help millions of people around the world feel seen, heard, and understood. And I feel seen, heard, and understood. I want my community to feel seen, heard, and understood, and for the guests to feel seen, heard, and understood.
how did your interest in the mental health space begin? Like, how did this all start?
I think for me, it was just going to the root of challenges in the world. I think we look around the world, we see so many issues, we see so many things that we're perplexed by. I'm sure a lot of people look around the world and maybe feel down sometimes, and they're carrying that with them. And I was thinking, well, if we could focus on one thing, like what's the root of all of the challenge we see? I think it comes down to mental health. I think if people are happier, they'll be better people, they'll be better partners, they'll be better parents, we'll be better professionals. If people are mentally healthy, we'll have a better impact on everyone around us. And so I think that all of our problems stem from a mental health challenge, and that doesn't need to be a mental health challenge that's diagnosed. It's just any sort of challenge we're dealing with.
And I love that some of the guests that you've had on, like you mentioned Lewis Hamilton, you had Tom Holland had a beautiful interview on your platform. It's a lot of guys opening up in areas that they used to just think that they would not feel like safe for, they would feel a little less than for, because we talked to Akbar from The Talk earlier this week, and he kind of said that he liked being in the daytime space and a talk space to show about some of the male point of view of the anxieties and everything like that. So I feel like, how have you been kind of like receiving all of that? Do you feel that a lot of the men that come on your podcast are like, oh, no one's ever asked me anything like this before?
Oh, I love that. That's such a great point. Yeah, I love Tom Holland. I'm actually going to see him tomorrow on Broadway, West End in Romeo and Juliet.
I had a hunch when you said you're seeing a friend in Romeo and Juliet.
So I'm very, very excited to see him tomorrow. So I'm glad you brought up Tom. I thought Tom's openness on the podcast about his sobriety journey, about his personal journey with the media, with press, everything was so strong of him and so powerful. And everyone came up to me afterwards and was just like, he was just sitting so comfortably and we were hanging out. And that's credit to Tom for, using the platform to share his message so beautifully and wonderfully. And I agree with you. I think that when men come on the podcast and talk about their mental health, they talk about the anxiety, I think it's inspiring so many more men to go through that journey. I've had so many people come up to me and say that inspired their sobriety journey or kept them, kept them energized in it as well. And that's the most meaningful feedback I could ever ask for.
Yeah. Now, apart from the celebrities who you've had on your podcast, you've built like an A-list fan base. There are so many famous people who are obsessed with you. Who has shocked and delighted you the most that you found out that they were a fan of your work?
Oh, wow. Okay, let me think about that. I think one of the biggest ones more recently was Shawn Mendes, who's become a dear, dear friend.
Oh,
yeah.
And so Shawn and I became friends probably like 4 years ago. He read my first book, Think Like a Monk, and we connected over that in the DMs. And we've ended up building this beautiful friendship and relationships. We go on hikes every single week when we're both in LA. And he's such a sweet, sincere, genuine soul, like one of the most special people I've ever met. And so it's a beautiful friendship. And I'm a big fan of his music. I always have been.
Boston Japan.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a moment, yes.
So it's, he's been a real joy to get to know.
I love that. And aside from celebs, you help with a lot of people, not just with anxiety, but a lot of things that cause people anxiety. Dating is one of those things that causes anxiety.
Yes.
I'm single. What am I doing wrong? Or what are we all doing wrong? Like, help me.
I'm pretty sure you're not doing anything wrong. I think it's just hard.
Yes.
And I want to remind people that. Like, people think something's wrong with me.
Yes.
I'm doing something wrong. I actually think it's got to this place where it's a game of odds. Like, it's a game of numbers. It's like, how many people are you meeting? How many people are you interested in? And the challenge is we're not meeting enough people. And we're not meeting them in enough interesting areas and spaces. I think you meet someone at an event or you meet someone at a party and it's like awkward and uncomfortable. Whereas if you look 25 years ago, everyone was being introduced by a family member or a friend. Yeah. And that's disappeared now. So it has become challenging. But I do think that dating based on similar values, places of similar interests are what's going to change the game. And so I think we need to go out and be in places, whether it's apps or offline. And I'm seeing so many people find wonderful relationships through apps. So I'm a big proponent of both.
Yeah, now you're actually now an advisor for Match.com.
Yes.
So I feel like a lot of people hopefully they'll take your advice, because I feel like online dating can be such a disaster. How can people sort of reframe their approach to make it more successful?
Well, one of the things we did with Match, which I was really, really excited about, is we built a value-based testing system. So everyone gets to find their values through a questionnaire that we've built, a quiz that we've built, and then you get paired with people based on equal values. So you can go into the conversation with a list of questions that already let them know about what you know about them, what you're interested in, and the fact that you both know you care about family, the fact that you both know you care about travel, it already makes it easier for the conversation to flow. So we've actually built a system that allows you to connect with that, and I'm really proud of it.
And of course, it's like a hard thing because it's going to be so specific for each person. What would be and you're a married man, what would be your ideal like first date that you would recommend? Like, what do you think is like the best environment or something like that? You know,
that's a great question. I think a lot of us rely on coffees, teas, restaurants, maybe if you're lucky. But I think that's great for a first date, to be honest. I don't think we need to change that, but I think the second and third need to change. Because you don't want too much investment on the first date and put too much into it. But the second and third need to become more experimenting. Do an activity you've both never done before. Get active. Get away from this interview format and this investigation, interrogation format, and start moving into space where you're both active. You're getting to see someone in a new environment. It could be mini golf. It could be ping pong. It could be, get active with someone. See someone in a fresh light. And it's great if you're both terrible or if you're both great at the sport. Because I think you get to see someone in their authentic self. And I think we're in a place now where we're only seeing the perfect version or putting forward the perfect version of ourselves. I've been with my wife now for 11 years, and the truth is you're seeing the flawed version of each other every day. And so what if you started to see that in an endearing way early on? I think that would be great.
Now, 11 years into it, what's your favorite date night with your wife? When you have time for a date night, because you're busy.
It's still activities. Yeah. We love to find an escape room, a magic show, something where we can go and have a new experience together, where we're both out of our comfort zone. A few years ago, we started just doing extreme sports together. So we went skydiving. We were doing cold plunging.
That's a way to bond.
We
were doing wakeboarding.
You go rock climbing?
Yeah, no. Oh my God, it's right there. She would love to do that. Do not show her that. Trust me. But that's the kind of thing that we find that when we get to see a new side of each other, I always say to people, if there's someone you've known for a long time, they're an old relationship or an old friend, find something new about them. And the only way you find something new is by doing new things. And if you meet someone new, find an old connection that you have, an old city you lived in, an old family member, an old friend, an old workplace.
And because like you said, every day you kind of like see a flawed version of yourself. When you guys have those flawed moments, what is something that like for couples listening that might be like having like a little like heated moment? Like how do you guys like bring yourself back to like, we're a team, we love each other? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think me and my wife benefit from having a brain wash every morning where we both wake up and we remember it's a new day.
Yeah,
it's a new day, it's a new start. Like what happened yesterday doesn't have to be carried into today. It's up to us to make that choice. And I think that's really served us well. Yeah. Like saying to ourselves, today's a new day, today's a new start. Yesterday doesn't matter. Whatever happened, it's okay. But we're going to figure it out. And I think that regeneration every day is something we need personally and with our partners.
I love that, a brainwash.
I
could benefit from a brainwash.
Yeah.
Now, when you guys got together, there wasn't so much public interest in your relationship. I feel like people love you guys as a couple. How do you navigate the spotlight as a couple? Has it been tough?
Sure.
Has it been fun?
Absolutely. No, it's been really, really tough. So yeah, the first time that we talked about our relationship publicly was in 2019.
Okay.
At that point, we would have been together for, I think, like 6 years and married for 3. And so that felt like a good time. And before that, we didn't. And since then, it's been hard and easy. I think there's a lot of expectation that comes with it. Yeah. People start to notice everything. Yeah. So it's really interesting when everyone's like, oh my God, Radhi hasn't posted Jay, are they okay? And I'm like, things like that. And I'm like, well, Radhi doesn't like to post about her relationship. She likes to keep it really private. Yes. It's really important to her. Right. And I love posting about her because I absolutely adore her. So it's like, I think the point is that as a couple, you've got to be clear about what your boundaries are and what's important to you. And then it's okay with how everyone reacts, because you can't control people's reaction. They're entitled to their opinion. But I think it's important that we're on the same page.
Right.
And because we are, it's actually not been that bad.
And I feel that's such good advice, even for like the A++ list, to just like everybody else, like just taking away the noise.
Yes.
Because when that starts to creep in, that's when it's like, you're like, is this my thought, or is this a thought that I didn't even have and I don't even really believe? Yeah.
Totally. And I think for us, one of the things that's really helped is we also, every year we have a ritual of her coming on the podcast. Yeah. And so she was the first episode of the podcast ever, and she continues to come back every year. We launched the podcast on Valentine's Day in 2019, and she's always the Valentine's Day episode. And she came on, and one year where we missed a year somehow, I think it was the pandemic or something, and she came on, and we just had one of the most emotive, vulnerable, she was like crying, and I didn't even know what was going through her mind. And so I think we've been comfortable also sharing like the reality of our relationship rather than just the highlights. Yeah. And I think that's helped us in helping people understand us as well.
What are your predictions for the Valentine's Day 2025 conversation? Anything you want to get into in particular?
I think I'm going to be surprised. My wife has been through such a growth year for herself. Like she had her first cookbook launch this year, which became a New York Times bestseller. Yeah. She just launched her podcast called A Really Good Cry. And so she's kind of had this amazing moment in 2024. So in 2025, I need to figure out how that's been for her. and sometimes I wait for these podcasts to, you know, really get deep with her.
Yeah,
so,
I love that. It's great to see you guys grow together
Thank
and
you.
separately.
Yes.
You know, and it's really super beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you so much
so
for taking the
much.
time to chat. This
Oh,
was
so
so
grateful.
great.
No, thank you
We
both.
feel so honored.
Honestly, and you turned the best look for us.
Yes, you
Like,
did.
the fit game is so strong.
Oh, thank you. I turned up. I was, you know,
Yeah.
I love you guys. This is great. Thank you so
you so
much.
much.
You're the
Thank
best.
you.